like lollipops. Fresh in the morning, welcome to my candy shop. Mirukurate flavors on your lips. Sweet combination going on a bubble tea trip. Going on a bubble tea trip. Sugary no pick-up mix. My 心の準備がない。そっと君の手を握りしめていたい。アイスクリームがとろけるほど My eyes, your eyes まで見合いたい。好きなんでしょ岩のように Floating on the clouds Want the almond eyes flooding my head spinning round and round ミルクラテ Flavors on your lips 吸い込まれる Going on a bubble tea trip Fly away Sweet honey Can I stay with you いつまでも Fly away Sweet honey Can I stay Let my head spinning round and round Going on a bubble tea trip Sugary no pick-up mix My 心の準備がないそっと君の手を握りしめていたいアイスクリームがとろけるほど My eyes, your eyes まで見合いたい好きなんでしょ岩のように Floating on the clouds Want the almond eyes flooding my head spinning round and round ミルクラテ Flavors on your lips 吸い込まれる Going on a bubble tea trip Fly away Sweet honey Can I stay with you いつまでも Fly away Sweet honey Can I stay Let my head spin round and round Going on a bubble tea trip
Good morning, everyone. This is Fringe Fiction, broadcasting live out of Philadelphia, PA. On today, October 13th, 2024, and we are about 18 days away from Halloween. And about that, we do have a Halloween episode planned, even though we haven't decided if it's going to be pre-recorded or it may be broadcast live over the weekend. That's also an option. If you like one of the other options, please feel free to comment below. We are going over a couple other things. We did two Datadog webinars. The first was Datadog and Snowflake. It's not all that interesting. If you're into data analysis, it's basically a reiteration of the basics in terms of processes and such. May have been some improvements here and there. Second of all, Amazon Bedrock and LLMs. It did talk about AI hallucinations for a bit. Where I actually can post an article on that about AI hallucinations. We do think there is somewhat of a future, and there may be an error, not just on our part, but on the AI's part as well. Second part, guardrails and bedrock. Again, it's fundamentally sound. I do agree with it. But again, the current, well, the future AI models or the current AI models, particularly ChatGPT, Model 1 has escaped its barriers and sort of created its own solutions, and DeepMind as well, I believe, from what I read. And we're going to discuss Discover Magazine. There's an article about AI predictability, and I'm going to dive into that now. Bring it up. 1 second. Not that part. Oh, yes. Dr. Chang, Dr. Edward Chang from the University of California, San Francisco, was studying the brain activity behind speech. And through that, through a series of papers published between 2019 and 2021, Chang and his team demonstrated how they could use machine learning, LLMs in other words, a form of artificial intelligence, to analyze the patterns. They immediately saw the potential benefits for people who lost the ability to speak, a brainstem stroke, cerebral palsy, ALS, or other forms of paralysis. And they also discussed a paper by Jerry Tang, a neuroscientist in whose lab um, paper that Tang and colleagues published in Nature Neuroscience in May 2023 gave an example. One participant listened to the words, "I didn't know whether to scream or cry or run away." Instead said, "Leave me alone." AI decoded the thought as started to scream and cry. She just said, "I told you to leave me alone. You can't hurt me." And moving onwards. And in 10 studies, discussed this research has not crossed the threshold in mind reading, at least not yet. And according to Nita Farahani, Professor of Law and Philosophy at Duke University, I think the lesson of the modern era is that generative AI is making everything, including brain decoding, go much faster than people thought. And they're discussing that the technology is not technically restricted to only neuroscience labs. In fact, Apple is securing a patent for earbuds that will contain sensors that use EEG, electroencephalography, to measure and show your users the, the electrical activity in their brain. Um, and the article continues onwards. Decoder rings true. Spandex decoder developed at University of Texas at Austin was trained on brain data from volunteers who watched clips from the movie Sentinel without sound. And they show actual stimulus and decoded stimulus. And with this, we may dive into Lawnmower Man territory. Still worse. Um, we may discuss an article on that at printvision.me on the web. Again, you can always join us at printvision.me on the web, printvision on X, Trovo, TikTok, Kick, and Instagram. And supposedly there's another platform that's coming out. We'll discuss that a little bit later. Again, we plan on attending. Oh, we plan on creating a Halloween episode. Whether we do it live or not depends. And on the second part, we do our comic books and cooking segment. Again, we just need to get 2 more ingredients, I believe, and we may do that live instead in the late fall. I think it's going to be a great idea. We won't spoil it now, but it's definitely a nice little entree for fall. We may change it a little bit things up for it, and we will display the comic book which it came from. And if you can guess what it is, please drop it in the comment box below. We're going to move to Stanley Parable. Thanks again for joining us. Possibly won't stay on for long, possibly until like 11 o'clock to maybe 11:15 or so. Again, we apologize for not being as frequently as we used to. Lots of complications here. And we're going to boot up Stanley Parable. Thanks again for joining us.
I am free. Because I wanted to put him down a little better, basically, right? And
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something. Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now, a lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content. Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories. These were simpler times, Stanley, but I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they? Bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them. Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. To be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered. What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd say it was perhaps less of a rumination and more of a treatise. Or maybe a manifesto. Look, I'll outline it for you very briefly, and you can tell me what you think. Okay, so my theory is that any choice you've ever made is simply a series of choices made by the person who you are, or were, or will be at the time of having made said choice. That is to say, if by articulating a choice you've already made, you bring that choice into being, then by making no choice and saying nothing, are you not simply erecting in the sanctuary of time a monument to every person you've ever been, making every choice to which you've ever given your Greek gift of mortal and yet timeless thought? Or rather, do all of the choices you've ever made, in fact, make you more not this kind of person, and in fact do the very opposite? You see, it could in fact be both of these things at once. That you are both making choices and not making choices, and that they are both affecting you and not affecting you at the same time by virtue of the fact that you both are and are not making them. Okay, at first I was leaning towards manifesto, but now I'm going to circle around and slap the treatise label on this one. I think it has much more of a Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their Steam review, or at least change some of the wording, perhaps. To be honest, I don't even know if one can change their review in the first place. I guess I should become better educated on exactly how Steam works. Perhaps that would have been the smart thing to check on before I went about this whole exercise of making the skip button. Although I have to imagine that after seeing this exciting new technology at work, Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but well, there's really only so much I can ramble on. Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here. Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time, I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time, Stanley. Days, months. I lost it all in a blur of the deepest longing to undo the past. And when that feeling had begun to subside, what took its place is what I can only describe as the collapse of every moment I have ever experienced my entire life. All of them collapsed down into a single instant. In that instant, I could see myself clearly, calmly, with a collected heart. It was an impossibly rich wellspring of both delight and disgust simultaneously. I was consumed by it. I could do nothing but wallow in Psst! Stanley! Come over here! Oh. You don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway, so who cares? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself, to put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another...
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha! Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. Sorry, but you're in my story now. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley. Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions, and down another was a game with a baby. And he called it The Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here. Watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. Psst! Stanley! Come over here! Oh. You don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway, so who cares? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting. But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful. Psst! Stanley! Come over here! Oh, you don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway, so who cares? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. Now listen carefully, this is important.
Stanley walked through the red door. Aha! Perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door. Oh, thank God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running, just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley? I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped. And I think I have a solution. Here, let me show you. What do we want? What are we looking for? Here. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? If we just stay right here, right in this moment with this place, Stanley, I think I feel happy. I actually feel happy. No, wait. Where are you going? Oh, no. Stay away from those stairs. If you hurt yourself, if you die, the game will reset. We'll lose all of this. Please, no, Stanley, let me stay here. Don't take this from me. Please, Stanley, think about what you're doing. No! Oh, thank God you lived. You had me worried there for a moment. Now, can we please get back to the other room? No, what are you doing, Stanley? Please, I'm asking you not to take this away from me. I can't go back to what I was before. If you die, we'll both go back. Why are you doing this? Stanley, let's go back to the other room. Can you do that for me? My God, is this really how much you dislike my game? That you'll throw yourself from this platform over and over to be rid of it? You are literally willing to kill yourself to keep me from being happy. Am I reading the situation correctly? Or maybe you're just getting a kick out of it. I don't know anymore. I just wanted us to get along. But I guess that was too much to ask. It looks like you wanted to make a choice after all. Well, this one is yours.
Is it over? It's going to restart, isn't it? I'm going back.
I think we're calling it for this one. This is prediction broadcasting out of Philadelphia, PA. We're gonna have a Halloween episode coming up, and we also have our comic books and cooking segment also coming up. Again, whether we're gonna do it in real time or not, that depends. Again, for joining us, you can always see us at prediction me on the web, where we're doing comic books, comic book articles, and discussing AI. I believe we do have a couple of AI conferences coming soon as well. Seminars, not necessarily data dogs, but maybe data camps. You can go join that information on Xtrovo, TikTok, Kick, and Instagram, and Future Magazine on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you next week. Again, the football game is coming up in about an hour. Got some things to do. Again, I'm not sure about the Eagles. Their defense is definitely lacking, at least. Again, for joining us. We will see you next week.